Listen to this. When it seems as if we are at the crossroad of life, when it seems as if the storm is raging without stopping, when it seems as if the boat that is carrying our lives is about to sink, as human beings, we tend to think that God has forsaken us. We tend to think that God has forgotten us. I want to tell you something. You are not alone in that ship. In the book of Psalm 22, the psalmist over there cried out with a loud voice. He said, my God, why hast thou forsaken me? Why hast thou kept deaf ears to my crying? He said, I called you in the morning, you couldn't answer. I called you in the afternoon, you couldn't answer. But he says something in verse 3. He said, but thou art holy. You inhabit in the praises of your people. That is the psalmist talking about God. He said, my fathers called upon you, and you delivered them. You did not allow them to be confounded. You didn't put them to shame. That is the psalmist talking. So when we are passing through the narrow road of life, we should think about this, that God still inhabits in the praises of his people, that he did not put our great forefathers in shame, and he will not put us to shame. Look at what happened to Paul. The Bible talked about Paul in the book of Acts of the Apostles chapter 27. The Bible said that Paul was traveling with 275 men in the ship. But for 14 days, there was no light. There was no star. They were traveling in darkness. The storm was raging without stopping. And in verse 20, Luke wrote that, when there was no star, there was no sun, and every hope of being saved was lost. He didn't stop there. There's one thing he said in verse 21. He said, Paul got up because God has appeared. He said to them, be of good cheer, for none of us shall perish. And I'm speaking to you this moment that none of us shall perish. None of you shall perish. You will be healed in that sickness. He said, for the angel of the Lord, of whom I am his servant, appeared unto me last night and said, fear not, for you will see Caesar.